So my name's Lorraine from Tyfu Cymru, and I'd just like to welcome you both to how to master financial spreadsheets using Microsoft Excel. If I could just make you aware that this session is being recorded, so that it can be made available to rewatch on our Knowledge Hub section of the Tyfu Cymru website. So if you have any concerns regarding that, just please let us know afterwards. Well, there aren't many of us, so normally I'd say pop your questions in the chat box. Do you still want us to do that, Stuart?
Oh, ask away.
We'll have a bit more of an informal chat. If you have any questions, just ask away. So yeah, this is Stuart Hooper. He'll be taking the lead today. So he's a training consultant specialising in Excel amongst other programs, and we're delighted to welcome him here this afternoon. So I'll pass you over to him now.
Thank you, Lorraine. Yeah, welcome both. So yeah, thanks for coming along. So yeah, as you said, I'm a business consultant, deal primarily with Excel, but got quite a lot of years of being a business analyst in the food and drink sector and a business improvement analyst as well. We used to make innocent smoothies. We were a company called Sun Juice in Llantrisant, so I learned quite a lot from kind of that little stint, and pretty much by the end of the time I was there, we ran 4 bottling sites just off Excel. It's 20 years ago now. You'd never do that now, but that's what we did. So I've done quite a lot with Excel. I've made loads of mistakes, and it's about making those mistakes which make you a little bit better as well. So it's not about beating yourself up, it's about saying, right, okay, learning for the next time. So yeah, nice cozy little group. So please just feel free to ask any questions. Don't think they're silly. Ask them out loud, okay? And let's see if we can help you. So hour 20ish, something like that, we're going to be on for, okay? And I'm going to take you through this spreadsheet, which I'm going to share my screen in a second. I haven't forgotten yet, but I just wanted to talk to you guys first. So before we go into this, as there's only 2 of you really, why did you sign up for this course, if I may ask? If you want to stay quiet, that's absolutely fine. But why did you sign up for it? Is there any particular problems that you're having with it? Anything you desperately need help with?
Well, no, I'm fairly okay with Excel, but I keep finding there's quite a few things that it does which I hadn't realised, and also being in the food and drink line as well, and also as we progress on, I say particularly we're getting export and everything else sorted, and Excel is an ideal situation for keeping all the records and everything else together. So that's my main reason.
Lovely, thank you, Chris.
From my perspective, I love a good spreadsheet, I have to admit. And I'm used to using them. In my previous role, I used to use them a lot. But I'm interested in actually setting up my financial accounts. I mean, they're small compared to a lot, I'm sure, but to be able to set them up properly. But my question really is how I would generate invoices, because I currently use a freebie financial thing that I use online. It's called Wave. I don't know if you've heard of it. But they're trying to get rid of us, basically, because they want you to pay now.
Yeah, that's what happens after a little while. Okay.
And really, now that I know a little bit more about where I'm going, I think maybe a spreadsheet would do the job, but I've got this issue with invoices.
Okay.
So it's just how I can maybe balance that up, if I can balance it up.
Yeah, you can do it. I'm not sure whether we're going to be covering that in this course because we've got a syllabus to set up. But
yes,
what I will do is, as we approach that sort of part of it, I will just talk about it very briefly, just for you to have a bit more of an understanding, because some of the tools that we'd need to do that aren't actually in this session. But
no,
I can literally point you to the tools. I can show you roughly what you would need to look at, and then there is help available on a one-to-one on other sides as well. And I am actually helping a customer do exactly that, actually. Yeah, there are ways of doing it, so I will address it where I feel like I can. All right, but still shout up if there's any other kind of issues. So that isn't your only chance. All right, so just there's only a few of us today, so make the most out of our session. So let's share my screen then, and let's get this underway. So what we're going to do is we're just going to double check. Can both of you see my screen? Okay,
Yes.
we all see it. All right. So can you see up the top left hand side? So I've got the green kind of bar at the top. Can we all see up there? Yeah, shout if you can't.
Yeah.
And I've got a little kind of where the scroll bar is down here. Okay, I may be talking about things on the very top and the very bottom. So if I'm talking about it, you can't see it, then please just shout and I'll make it that little bit smaller or bigger, whatever we need. Okay. So this spreadsheet will be available after as well. Okay, so don't think you have to kind of remember everything and just watch it back. I'm quite happy to send out the original template as well if you need to. Okay, so you can kind of follow along again just to help that the tools set in. So what are we going to be doing today? We're going to look at this spreadsheet, okay, and we're going to talk about structure first. So structure is really, really important within Excel. If you don't get the structure right, it makes things really, really hard and difficult to actually get the answers out that you need to. We probably all spend far too much time on Excel at the moment. I do love a good spreadsheet as well, but I've actually got work to do, and I use the spreadsheet to actually, you know, kind of organize things for me and do things like invoices. I do my invoices off them as well. So we want to spend a little less time because actually we don't make money from actually being on Excel, if that makes sense. So structure is absolutely vital. We're going to look at VLOOKUP, okay, something that you may be familiar with. If you're looking at it for the first time, then we'll introduce you to you properly, okay. We've got SUMIFs as well, which is what we're going to use today. We're also going to look at something called COUNTIFs, okay. But in the main, I know this sounds a little bit odd, but we are going to focus on structure because honestly, this is the key bit. So you can see my spreadsheet now. So we've made a spreadsheet up. Okay, none of it is accurate. All innocent people have been removed from the spreadsheet. So we've just made up some values. We've made up kind of just transactions that you would normally see in your line of business. So what I'm going to do is just going to take you through the relevant cells and the information that we've got in it. We're going to have a look through some of the other little worksheets at the bottom and see what they do. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to use these tools that I've mentioned to summarize what we've actually got and make life a little bit easier. So VAT is a really common one. If you speak to quite a lot of people in your position, everyone is like, how do I make life easier when doing things like VAT? So that's why we've concentrated on this. VAT or not, doesn't really matter. You can still take out the principles from this. Okay, so we've got structure. We've got this finance sheet. So this is where all our transactions are. Okay, so on every row, so every horizontal row going down the page, that is a different transaction. Now you will see as you go down the page, transaction numbers go up. Okay, that's called what's called continuous data. So on the next row, you'll have another one. On the next row, you'll have another one, and so on all the way down the page. Okay, we can see we've got things like date accrued, actual dates. Don't worry if you don't use accrued or you don't do the actual method or you use it with cash, it doesn't really matter. That's absolutely fine. We've got business. So some people have multiple businesses that they need to look after as well. Now, because I've got business A here and business B, you know, very creative, it doesn't matter. You can have different sections, you can have different departments, you can have different areas that you're looking at. So I put it in like that just so we can kind of work around this. We've also got types. So I've got income and expenditure, kept it nice and clean. Okay, notice income and expenditure are all on one sheet. Okay, a lot of people will actually put income on one sheet and expenditure on another sheet. So it's worth really just having a little kind of think about how you set this up to start with. Okay, then I've got company. So we may be buying off certain companies, we may be supplying certain companies, and then I've got zones as well. So pretty much wanted to match VAT in case anyone was interested. So we've got UK zones and EU zones, okay? We've also got things like people are VAT registered, okay, because not everyone is. And then we've got prices here. So in other words, our starting point. So all with a yellow kind of highlight on the top. And why do I use yellow? I use yellow on the top of everything to signify that that's where I want to put data in. It's really so simply done to overwrite a formula. You can spend quite a lot of time on it, and then all you need to do is just type over it, and then it's lost and you have to do it all again. So what I do is to try and make myself avoid that is just to know which ones I can actually type in. I've got some to the left, the right rather. Okay, I've got VAT, total price, month, quarter, VAT, period, and year. We'll go through those in a little while. You can see they're in grey. So doesn't matter if you have them in blue, doesn't matter at all. But these are what I call my freebies. Okay, I try and get more information out of this by using these little freebies. So what do I mean by freebies? We'll put formulas in these. Okay, so essentially we're going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 formulas in these. We're going to copy them down, and that's going to give me all of my data. I don't need to type in any more information. So even though it goes up to the letter O here, all I'm going to ever want to be typing in is whatever data I need in here that's important. That could be individual, that could be unique, and then the rest of it works it out for me. Okay, that's an incredibly useful thing if you use something called a pivot table as well. So if you've ever used pivot tables before, the more data you've got, just nod in there, the more data you got, the more easy it is to segment and analyze your data. Okay, but you don't want to be typing it in all the time. That's the point. So at the top, let's just recap that. So we've got individual and unique column headers going across the top. Okay. And then on the right hand side, we've got data that we're going to fill out. So that's the first slide, the first spreadsheet. And you can see what we're going to do in here. We're just going to literally fill these in, copy them down, and we're away. We've also got a few other things in here as well. Now, I've got a dates page in here. So as I just open this up a little while, I can see I've got these dates going down the page. I use this in pretty much every spreadsheet that I have a date in, because a date in Excel is quite hard to use. It's quite hard to kind of summarize because Excel really doesn't like dates. And in fact, that first of the first 21 isn't actually in Excel as a date. It's actually in as a 5-digit number. That's how Excel stores dates. So I try and take that away from Excel. And how do I do that? What I do is I look at having every single date in the year, okay, or in a period. And as you can see, I've only put 1st of the 1st 2021 in here. If I look down to my A3 here, you can see I've got a formula in here. I've got equals sum A2 plus A1. So all I'm doing is adding 1 day on every single time. And as I drag that down, it does it for me. So this feels like hard work, but actually, if I just change that a second, and remember I change it back, because otherwise the spreadsheet wouldn't work, you can see then whatever date I type in there, it automatically does that for me. Okay. And then what I do is I look to put any kind of grouping next to it. So what do I mean by grouping? It could be month, it could be quarter, it could be a VAT period, it could be a year. And this is all, remember, to get our little freebies out. Okay. So 1st of the 1st 2021 is in the month of 2021 01. So in other words, January 2021, if that makes sense. If I move this down to February, so you can see it change, 2021 02, okay, and 03. And when you're using numbers with Excel, it makes life a hell of a lot easier. Okay, it's so much quicker to do. I've put quarters in here as well, in case you wanted to do that. So you put 2020, and I've got quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4, just to work it out. Okay, I've got VAT periods. So if you're doing VAT off this, it's really hard just to do VATs in the first place. And especially now it's digital, you have to be able to do something like this. So how easy would it be that actually when you type a transaction in, it finds that VAT period for you and then puts it in the VAT period. And then using the skills that we're going to learn in a little while, we can actually add up how much we owe or how much we need to reclaim from HMRC. And then finally, I've got a year in as well. So self-explanatory. So all that's done is just got the year. Now I've just typed those in, okay, with a mixture of copy and pasting and just slightly editing them. It doesn't take too long, but within about 20 minutes, you've got this sheet, and you can use this then in any other spreadsheet that you use. Okay, so that's what's called a little background sheet. I've put colors on these similarly as I use with these column headers here. So I've got it in yellow. So I use green for anything I actually have to type it in. I put red in for just be careful, don't overtype stuff unless you're absolutely sure. And then I usually have like blues just for things like summaries. Okay, so I'll come onto the sheet in a second. So back onto this transaction sheet. So I've got all of my data in here. Nowhere within here am I actually subtotaling anything. I'm not looking at the end of every month and trying to subtotal things. I've got nothing in here whatsoever. I've got no consolidation. The only thing that I'm doing is I've got prices there. I'm also obviously going to be adding VAT, total prices, and some of the other dates and things that we mentioned just on here. I'm not summarizing though. That's really key. Okay. It's really important that when you use this kind of method, you don't do that. If I was to just insert some numbers here, and don't worry about if some of these go to values, I am taking away the chance of being efficient at being Excel. Okay. First off, these filters don't work. So if I put income in there, I can see it's filtered the income. Sorry, wrong choice. Should put expenditure in there. There we go. It misses some. Okay, it doesn't always choose every single one when you've got gaps in the data. Okay, so you do have to be really, really careful with it. We're going to add up the totals of whole columns as well. And if you do that with subtotals in, guess what? You're going to have to then minus off your subtotals as well. Okay. Another key thing in with the structure is to always start in the top left-hand corner. Okay. I don't need to know this is my finance sheet. I know this is my finance sheet. Why? Because if I look at the tab down the bottom, I can see it's called finance sheet. I can use something called a header and footer. I can never find it. So header and footer review, I think it is. Sorry, don't talk about this that much. I'll find it a little bit later and I'll show you. You can actually put the title of this page in there. So when you print it out, it always comes out at the top. Okay, so just try and keep it just data. Don't try and do too much with it. What we can do then is we can go to our summary page. That's what we're going to do in a sec. I'm going to click here. And then we can summarize things. So some of it's a bit garish, so don't panic. Okay, looks like there's quite a lot of information on here. So what are we going to do? We're going to learn how to do some of these things. We're going to learn how to get our totals from all of our income in that year that's in that spreadsheet. We're going to try and get all of our expenditure in there. From that, then we can work out our profit. We can work out our estimated corporation tax. We can then work out our net profit. All just from two little formulas just up here and a couple of ones we should already know down here. We can also look then to have a look at VAT, and we can drag the VAT back for a certain month or a certain period. And we can grab those back and we can work out the totals there. If we were doing something completely on VAT, then we could grab all of the VAT information that you need to submit your claim. And it would all just work out on here straight away. So you wouldn't actually need to work anything out. It's all done for you. And just remember, once you set this up, if you still then add more transactions, if there's something you've forgotten or the year's still ongoing and you just want to keep track of it, you can just add it in and this will automatically update for you as well. And we can just look at things like counting how many transactions we've had. So counting maybe how many invoices that we've sent out, that type of thing. So does that make sense? Is that okay? That's quite a lot. This feels like quite a lot to do in this time. It's very achievable though, okay? So let's start off on the finance sheet then. So remember, all of my transactions just to the left-hand side. We're going to now concentrate on this right-hand side. So freebies. What sort of information can we get out of here? Well, I see a lot of people every single day when I'm doing this role. I'm in this role rather. People type in the price, they then work out the VAT, and then they work out the total price. Well, we can get Excel to do that, can't we? So hopefully, we're all used to the sum method. Because one thing we don't want to be doing now at this level or any level really is to be not using the sum function. Okay, you can add things up. Excuse me, you can add things up just by pressing the equals button and then adding things just by clicking and using the plus button in between. We're going to come a cropper very, very quickly unless we learn to forget that. Okay, so little refresh probably for both of you, not sure. We'll see. This is how we work it out. So we're going to work out VAT. So VAT is 20%. Yeah, pretty much has been for quite a while. So we should be okay if we use 20% in this example. You can easily change it if you need to. You can use a cell reference as well, but this is the best way I find of doing it. So all I'm going to do is type in J2. I'm going to type in the equals button. So when I put the equals button in, it tells Excel to go off and work. Okay. The next thing we put in is called a function. It's not a formula. It's a function. And the reason why I say that, it's not pedantic. It's if you ever need to look up a function on Google. Okay, we've all done it. We all need to do it occasionally. If you put formula in, it doesn't give you the right answers generally. if you put function in, it gives you better answers. Okay, so I've typed in the first function, so equals, and then sum, S-U-M, and opened brackets. So everything I put in these brackets now, we're going to close them in a little while, the sum is going to have an influence on. Okay, and that's why you have the equals sum and then the brackets. So I'm going to type in I2 here. So I've got no kind of VAT in there. I've got no 20%. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to work it out. So I'm going to use my multiply button, Shift and 8. Okay, it's the asterisk. And then what is 20%? It's 0.2. So Excel, try and use decimals. Okay, they will help you out a little bit more. It is quite hard if you're used to using percentages. Okay, so just divide your 20 by 100 and you'll get your decimal and you work it out that way. If I now close my brackets and press enter, that gives me the VAT on that. And I know, because if I just change that to 11,000, I can see the VAT change. So we're not adding anything extra. Not only are we not adding anything extra, if we're confident that figure is right, then we don't have to keep on putting it in all the time. And that makes us make a mistake sometimes, doesn't it? If we keep replicating stuff, so we know that's right. So let me do that just one more time, just to make sure. Okay, we do the equals. So SUM, we open up the brackets. I'm going to click on I3. I'm going to press the multiply, 0.2, and we close the brackets. Okay. Now, probably cover a few of these little shortcuts as we go through. Control and S, that saves your spreadsheet as you go, rather than clicking in the top left-hand corner. So we're happy with that, guys? Yeah, nods, fine, great. Okay, so we've got a VAT figure in there. Now, the old-fashioned way is to actually click and hold and drag this down. Okay, there's a better way. So because there's numbers going down the left-hand side and there's data all across the page, if I just double-click where I would normally drag, I can see that puts it all the way down. Okay, everyone loves a shortcut. That's quite a good one. Okay, saves you a lot of time by doing it that way. All right, so now we've got all our VAT in. Is there any questions so far? Are we all okay? All right. Okay, let's finish this off then. So we get our total price in now. It's really, really simple, isn't it? Equals SUM, open brackets. Few different ways of doing this. You can press the I button, I2 rather, press the plus, and then the J2. Close your brackets, that gives us a plus. Okay, or equals sum. We can use the drag method. Click and hold on I2, drag across to J3, and I can close my brackets. And then the very last one, which is a little bit of a kind of almost like a cheat, but it's worth doing, is your little Autosum in your far right. A lot of people do it this way, click and then use Autosum. Always click rather in the cell reference first before you use it. Do Autosum, it'll always pick the wrong ones, but as it's going around and it's animated there, we can use the mouse, we can click and hold, and then we can press enter that way. Okay, very, very quickly, just in case we don't know, if I just make that a little bit bigger. The first one, we use the plus button, so that's really useful for then adding things up, either in different sections of a sheet, so of a page. Really good if you want to add up something which is on another page, or even on another spreadsheet entirely. Okay, you can link spreadsheets that way. The other way is just press the F2 button. I've got equals sum and I've got I3, and this time it's got a colon. The colon is good for adding lots of numbers up at once, okay, but they will have to be either horizontally or vertically, or a mixture of both. That's absolutely fine. So they're not very good if you've got different ones that you don't want to add up. Okay, so that's your 2 button. Okay, so both really, really important. So as before, I'm going to double click this, and there we go. We get all our data in there. So once again, if I take that back to 12,000, we can see now that that's adding that data in. We should never ever touch these. We can actually fix a cell, so we can actually lock a cell, I should say rather, so we can not overwrite things as well. There are ways of doing that, so that's not a bad way to go once you learn how to do that. Okay, so you can do that just to stop yourself overwriting things. So these aren't ever going to change really. Okay, so VAT may go to 19% or 21% one day, who knows. We can just change that formula as we go. The total price should be locked anyway, so we can lock those off. So hopefully that's okay, that's made sense. That's just use of the equals sum. Okay, so now we're going to look at kind of the bits that you're here for. So this is how to make things a little bit easier. So when I put in my date over here on the left hand side, okay, and I'm just going to make some of these things just a little bit smaller so I can hopefully see things all on the same page. We may want to be adding up how much income we've had in a month, how much expenditure we've had in a month. And the only way we currently know of doing that is to maybe sometimes use these filters. We can use it just for January, so we can see January, and then maybe we can add January's up by clicking on K and we can see it, but then we still have to do income, we still have to do expenditure. Okay, as I said before, pivot tables are a really good use of this sort of data as well, so you can use that as well. But what we're going to do is we're going to use a combination of a few things. We're going to use, eventually we're going to use sum ifs. So sum, just like we've been doing, adds things up. And we've got ifs, okay? Now they add things up if a condition is met. So in other words, what we're going to use this for, if a month is met. So if we want to just add up January, we can type in January, and then it would add things up for January. Okay, so we could get that split without doing anything horrible to our data. So hopefully that makes sense. So before we can do that, we've got to grab the month into this spreadsheet. So where would I grab the month from? So if I go back to this dates tab here, remember I've got dates, I've got my months, I've got my quarters, VAT and year. Yeah. So this is the stuff that we're going to now grab in. This is where you see how vital this can be. So if I go back to my finance sheet, I'm going to use something called VLOOKUP. Have you guys used VLOOKUP before? Just a quick little, no? Okay. So how do we use a new function? What we'll do is click onto L2 because that's where we want the month to come out from. And I'm going to click on the equals button. Okay. I can type the V and the L of lookup. And if I double click that, just where that blue bit is, double click it, it nicely puts it in for me. Okay, really good for ones that you can't remember how to spell. So that's quite useful. And then what we're going to do then is go up to the top left, and just where we've got our formula bar here where it says equals VLOOKUP, there's a little FX button that a lot of people miss. We click on that button. And then what that does is it breaks down our data for us. So that helps us to be able to see what we're doing. So what is VLOOKUP? So VLOOKUP looks at a unique piece of data and it brings back all related data that we require back to it. So that sounds really complicated. So what does that mean? I'm going to put a date in here. So I'm going to take one of these dates and I want it to look up on the other page what month that was in. Does that make sense? So if I just click onto dates here, I'm going to use a date to then look at this date to then bring back whatever month is to the right of it. Okay, so let me go back. So let me get rid of that. So what am I going to look up? So I've got a few different ways of using lookups. Okay, there's one called equals lookups. Don't use that ever. You have to have a lot of things in the right place for it to work. Things have to be in a certain order, so forget that one. You're then left with two others. You've got VLOOKUPs, which we're going to use now, and HLOOKUPs. Okay, VLOOKUPs is probably the most asked for function there ever is in Excel, but it's also the most common one as well. Okay, why VLOOKUP? V stands for vertical, H stands for horizontal. So we're looking vertically. So Excel likes vertical things. It likes working down a page. So how do we know whether something is a VLOOKUP or a HLOOKUP? Well, these transaction IDs for a start and these dates. So in other words, the things that we're going to look up, these dates, are actually going down the page. They're going vertically. So therefore, it's a VLOOKUP. If they were going across the page, which I would advise never to use, but on some occasions you have to, then you would have a HLOOKUP. There's only one bit different. So where we've got this column index number, in the HLOOKUP, you would see something called a row index number. And we'll explain that a little bit as we get close to it. Is that okay? Does that make sense so far? Okay, let's see this in action then. So I'm just going to click on this little box here. So we've got lookup value. So what are we looking at? We're looking at that unique piece of information. So I'm going to use the actual method, okay, of cash. So I'm going to click on C2. Now remember over here in month, I was clicked on L2. So it's all we're doing is looking whatever that line or whatever that date is on that row, we're looking at that row. Okay, and it's got in there finance sheet in inverted, in apostrophes. Okay, so they're there just to signify and to tell you what actual tab you've clicked on. Okay, so don't ever be scared of that. You'll also see an exclamation mark after it. Okay, those little apostrophes will disappear if you only have a sheet and it's only one word. Okay, so don't worry about what I've just said there, but it's just in case you ever need to manipulate it, you need to just remember you need to have those apostrophes in there as well. And then we've clicked on C2. So on the right hand side there we can see 44,197. Do you remember a little bit earlier I said dates are stored in Excel as a number? All right, so whenever you're trying to work with dates and you see a number come up and you're not expecting it, if it's 5 digits, don't worry, it's just a matter of formatting. That's just grabbed that number out. So actually the first of the first 2021 Excel is actually stored as 44,197. Okay, that's all that is. Don't be scared of it. So what I always do is once I've typed that in, I will always click straight away onto the next one, because any touch of the keyboard, or if you're using your touch pads on your laptop, that can actually set this off and it can make it go wrong quite quickly. So always just click on the next box. Now we need to know our table array. Okay, so what is our table array? This means where am I going to find all of this data? Okay, and I'm going to find all of this data on this other tab, aren't I? Where do I find my dates and my months? So if I click on dates, I can see here's where I find it. Okay, now the reason I've set this up this way is to allow for an addition of any other new dates. Okay, so what do I mean by that? I haven't got any kind of summations. I haven't got any other data in the bottom. I've got no text. I've got nothing else here. It is literally just these dates and these months and quarters that we've got here. We've got nothing underneath. That's really important. So it allows me to do this next thing. If I click on the column A, okay, so I'm selecting everything, and I'm just going to drag across to year, okay, and I'll explain that why in a second, and I let that go. So why did I click at the top here? Because actually with VLOOKUPs, you don't ever have to have this top section in there, okay? We're not interested in date, month, quarter, VAT period. We're only interested in the data below it, okay? So usually when you're selecting sheets or you're selecting VLOOKUPs, you will say, I just want A2 through to E, and then you go down the page and you would actually select what you want to. So the more and more you do this, the more and more with VLOOKUPs then you have to amend and manipulate. Now it's really easy to set a spreadsheet up. It's very hard to kind of maintain it, isn't it? So if I put any other information here underneath, this VLOOKUP isn't going to work. Does that make sense? So if I do it from A up here at the top and go all the way across to E, that means whenever I put data underneath that, it's always going to look that information up. Is that okay? Yeah, lovely. I'm just going to click on the next one here. So let's talk this through. There's a bit of flickering on this, so apologies, because it's not that easy to show on Zoom sometimes. So just going back and forth. I'm going to just delete that a second. So we've got our lookup value, which is our unique information. Okay, it's a month. That means there's only one date there that belongs to that month. Okay, if you're using things like names, it's not really unique, is it? Okay, people can have the same name, so you always want some kind of unique reference. Now, Manir, as you were saying before, you maybe want to use Excel to get your invoices out. You can use a VLOOKUP and a combination of what's called a drop-down box. And as long as you've got unique pieces of information, if you had all of your invoices stored in this kind of format, so the date you sent it, maybe customer or supplier, the price, what they bought as well, you can actually use the VLOOKUP then to actually bring that data back into an invoice blank sheet. And once you type an invoice number in, it will bring up that sheet. You can then save as PDF. You can then send that out. and off you go. Okay, so that's one way you could use that. So we've got our unique date, which is in this column here. Now, nicely for us, this is in column A. This could be in column K, it doesn't matter, or L. But the one thing that's key is you've got to look for where you can find your unique piece of information. So our unique piece of information off the other page, remember, was a date. So which column can I find my date in? It's this first one here, isn't it? Yeah, so because I chose A to E, it's in the first one. So if that was L, yeah, further down here, doesn't matter if it's in L, that would still be column 1. Does that make sense? So always the furthest most left. So if my column index number is 1 on this one, where can I find my month? Column 2? Yeah, just a little bit of maths. So column A is 1, column B would be 2. So what we do is we type in number 2 in there. Okay, and then finally, we go into this last bit. I'm going to type in false. Now, why? So I could type in true or false down there. So you can use a VLOOKUP to do 2 things. You can use it to look up exact data, which is 99% of the time you're going to use it for. And you can use it also to look up approximate data. So usually when you're trying to kind of use these kind of financial spreadsheets, you don't want an approximate match, you want an exact match. So if I say I want that date to be found in there, you want it to come back with something. What that'll also do is if you've got something wrong, you've got something missing, it will show as an error. Now errors, we don't really like errors, do we? But I'd rather an error be there than it's gone to an approximate match. So you don't want to find something close to it. So, oh, that'll do. There are occasions where you can use that, okay? But generally you will always use false, which means an exact match. Okay, so we're going to use exact match here. So awful lot of talking, an awful lot of going back and forth. Let's just bring back what we were going to try and do. So we were trying to find the date. We were trying to look up then within that table array to see where the dates were situated and the data was situated. We looked 1 column across. So instead of column 1, we looked at column 2, and we want an approximate match. If I now press the OK button, I can see that that month now has come back. So that tells me it's 2021-01. Okay. Now, if you start trying to do months with actually type in January and things like that in, maybe sometimes when you come to sort data, you know, January isn't the first month of the year if you're doing it alphabetically. I think April is. So you'll have April, then August. If you do it that way, it gets a bit annoying. So if you do it by number, you can also sort it a little bit easier as well. Okay, so what does that allow me to do now? If I do my little double click, as I did earlier, as I look down my page, let's go a bit further down. So we could say right at the bottom here, 12th of the 4th, that's brought April back. Does that make sense? Yeah, lovely. Now, you may not be able to still see the benefit yet, but bear with me. So let me go across now. So I'll do a few of these just to make sure we're okay. In fact, what I'll do is I'll do the VAT period. So we use exactly the same method, and the more times you see this, the more familiar you get with it. So equals VL, I can double click. I can click on my FX button here. Okay, so what are we trying to do? So in this one, we're trying to find a date. We're trying to bring back the correct VAT period back. So same here. So what's my lookup value? My lookup value is the thing that I'm trying to bring information back off. So it's my unique value. So it's still that date. Okay. My table array. So where can I find my data? If I look at my date sheet, I can find it here. So I select all of my data. Now notice I'm selecting all of my data. If you just wanted to select from A through to D, because it's got VAT period, that's absolutely fine. Don't worry about it. I just find it better selecting all of them. It doesn't waste any computer memory. It doesn't make it any slower. It just makes sure it's all there for me. And then I look at my column index number. So let me pop back to this page. We've got our column index number here. So what does that mean again? Remember, where can I find my unique value in this data? So column 1 is where I find it. So I can find all my dates. My months are in 2. My quarters are in 3. Therefore, my VAT periods must be in 4. Does that make sense? Just count up. That's all you do. And then last but not least, we type in false because we want an exact match. Okay, I can press OK. And I can see now that I've got my VAT periods. And as I go down the page, I can see this change. So any April figures that are in actual dates will actually show as VAT period 2106. So that covers April, May, and June. Does that make sense? Is that okay? Last but not least, I'll just do this one. I'll do it a little bit quicker. And we'll leave the quarters and we'll see if anyone wants it a little bit later. So double click, FX buttons. What am I looking at? I'm looking at my date from my table array. So A through to E. I've got my column index number, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then last but not least, I've got my range lookup, which is false. Press OK. And if I just copy that down, there we go. We've got information going down the page. So near enough, that's now set. I will do this very, very quickly. So don't panic if you don't see it. It's not a problem. Just so we've got everything there in case we need it. Now, when you start using this a little bit more, you'll be able to type all this out, okay? You don't need to use that FX button all the time. It's just a really good idea for functions you're not used to. So there we go. So every time I put a new date in here, so if I just change that to the 4th of the 5th, maybe, oh, I'm not sure if I've got that in there, so 4th of the 4th, I can see now on the right-hand side, my month's changed, my quarter's now changed, my VAT period is now changed, my year is still the same, because guess what? We're still in the same year. So all freebies just to the right-hand side. Okay, now let's get onto our summary page. So this is where we can be a little bit more clever with our data set now. If we go into summary, let's look at what we can do. So we can grab our income in, our expenditures. So we can just grab totals for the year. So let's just do that to start with. Okay, how are we going to do that? We're going to use something called equals sum ifs. Notice there's an S on the end of that. There is an equals sum if. And just like I said earlier with equals lookups, don't use that one. It's a whole new method you have to learn. If you use it equals sum ifs, we only need to put one condition in there. Even though it's got an S, it sounds like you have to have more than one. You don't, you only need one, okay? So if you just learn this one, and it will suit you for whatever purposes you have. Okay, so in C3, what am I trying to find? My total income within 2021. Does that make sense? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to type the equals button here in C3. So always go to the cell that you want the answer to appear in. I'm going to type in SUM and then IFS. Okay, and I'm going to open the bracket and I'm going to do exactly as I did before with this little FX button. Okay, and then it brings this up. This looks a lot simpler, right? Does look nice to start with. It gets a little bit more complicated looking, but what we do is just build it up slowly. Okay, nice and easy. So what is sum ifs? Sum ifs takes the sum function, which adds things up. It also multiplies and does all that, but in this case, it adds it up. And it adds what's called an if statement to it as well. So it'll only add it when it meets certain conditions. So what are we going to look at this one? We're going to look at adding something up if it's an income, and then the next one we're going to do, we're going to add something up if it's an expenditure. All right, so we have always 3 criteria to start with. It's only showing 2 at the moment, but we're always going to have 3. The first one is always what you want me to add up. Okay, so what do you want me to sum? Now, there's a little bit of going back and forth between the sheets, okay? So bear with me if I'm going too fast or going too slow, speed me up or slow me down, whichever one, okay? So what are we going to add up? We're going to add up everything that has our total price in there. So if I click on the finance sheet, what do I want to add up? I want to add up all of this column, okay? Now, absolutely, you can click on K2 and you can drag that down, but same as before. If I just click on that K there, that's going to add everything up for me. Okay, and we can see there it's got total price. So in other words, it puts the column header there. It puts a few of those numbers in there next to it as well. All right. Now, what does I add to this criteria range? Now, the page is going to change as well. So as soon as I click on criteria range, it says about criteria. Okay, so some ifs. First thing you do, what are you adding up? Forget it then, it's done. These next few bits are what are my criteria? So what are the bits you want me to add up if something is true? So our criteria range, so what it does, it always says, right, where am I going to find the information that the criteria is going to be in? And then the criteria bit here underneath it is the what are we specifically looking for? So we can add this as we go. So if we've got another range that we add up, then we say, well, where am I going to find this piece of information? And then what am I actually looking for? Where am I going to find this bit? What am I looking for? And it's exactly the same all the way through. So the first one's the range. So whenever you see range, where are you going to find it? So where are we going to find the text income in our other sheet? If I go to finance sheet and move this, can we see, I can see it in column E. So I've got an income there. I've got incomes all over the place. Yeah, down here. So what I can do is I can click on E, just like we did. So I want it to always look into this column. And every time it sees an income, what it's going to do, it's going to add up this price here. So if I click on criteria now, it takes me back into my other page. Okay. What I can do is I can actually type this in, or I can click on the page. Now, because my page is a little bit big on this one, I can't really click on B3, but I know the income's actually in this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually click on expenditure. I'm going to just press the F button. So in other words, it's just looking at B3. And as I see here, it's got my income there. Does that make sense? Now, when I click OK, that's now added up all of my income, which is 33,600. Let's have a check of that. If I click on here, I click on income, and I just click on there, I can see at the bottom there, 33,600. Okay. So none of this filtering, you don't have to do any of that. So let's have another look at that. So if I do the expenditure version of this, I can do equals sum ifs. I can open my brackets, the same format, FX button. What do I want to add up? So if we go into the finance sheet, what are we going to add up? Apologies for this always getting in the way. I want to add up the total price, don't I? So I want to add up K. All right. Criteria. So what am I looking for? I want to know when something's an expenditure to add it up. So I click on my criteria range. We go and find it. Now, because it's on different sheets, this is why we're sheet hopping. If it's on the same sheet, it's easy. You can click on E. That's where I find all my expenditures. And then finally, what I can do in that criteria range, just to show you, is I can type in expenditure. So whenever you use Excel and you type in any text, you do have to remember to always put your inverted commas around it. So if you can see there that I've got an equal sign, that's nothing's there. If I put inverted commas at the end, and I put an inverted commas at the beginning, we can see that come up as expenditure. When that happens, that knows it's actually expenditure. Otherwise, it just thinks it's something incorrect. Somewhere it thinks there's an error. Okay, so I've typed that in rather than type in B4. If I click OK, okay, you can see I've got my expenditure on there. I must have changed some of these values because I'm sure I had a nice one which had a little bit less, but that's okay. We'll go with that for now. In fact, let me just double check this. What have I got in here? Some horrible number probably, is it? Give me 2 seconds. Let's call that income. Let's make it a little bit nice. It's still not going to be enough, I know, but we can do that way. Okay, so we can work out things like profit, can't we, from this? We can do equals sum. Click on that one. We can minus that one. Okay, so imagine if that was a plus. So all I'm going to do is put a minus sign. If I put a minus sign before sum, I don't know if you've used that before, you can turn minuses into positives. Okay, so I'm just going to do that just to make sure we can do the next bit, because otherwise it doesn't make much sense. I could do my corporation tax. I'm going to do some of that times, what is it? Can't remember actually, just a blank. 0.19, I don't know, 19%. Let's call it that. Close brackets, and we can see that. So every time now, final one, sum of that minus that. So every time now we're putting information into this finance sheet, it's automatically filling out our totals here. You can use that in P&L sheets. So what do I mean by that? If you've got a finance sheet here, and instead of maybe business, you've got maybe office expenses, or you've got capital expenses, or you've got subsistence. Yeah, if you look at this, you can have capital expenses, subsistence all the way down there, and it will automatically add up for you what you've got in those categories. If you've got budgets, you can have totals, and you can put your budgets to the right of it, and you can see how close you are. Yeah, you can see what the percentage of those figures are as well by literally just doing a little, whatever that is, just divided into the expenditure. So you can work it just by using this equals sum ifs to actually give you that information. Now, don't get me wrong, you can use pivot tables to do this as well. Okay, it's a lot nicer though in financials to use this kind of method rather than pivot tables, because they can be quite complex to shape into what you will. But you can use it this way. So does that make sense for what we've just done there? So instead of filtering through August's, or sorry, January, we can just look through it and actually get it to just do it using this kind of method. We've just done it from expenditure or income, can't we? So let's do that next bit. I kind of alluded to it then. I just mixed the two up, sorry. So this time, what do we want to do? We want to look at income maybe in January. Okay, so what we can do exactly the same. Equals sum ifs. Okay, open brackets. So if I put my little FX here, what can we do? We can look at the sum range. Okay, if I click on my finance sheet, what are we adding up again? Same, isn't it? This total price. Just check something a second. Sorry, we're doing VAT. Equals sum ifs. There we go. Finance sheet, get it right, Stuart. Right, so instead of total price, what are we doing? VAT. So this time I click on VAT. That's what we want to add up. What's our criteria range? Well, our criteria range is we wanted to look up income first, but we also wanted to look up what month it is. So let's do income first, because we've done that before. Click on income, right, criteria range. Click on this finance sheet. Where are we? Income's in here, isn't it? It's in E. So if I click on that E, and then click back on the next criteria, I can click on income there. Okay. Criteria range 2. So as you can see now, as soon as I click on something in there, it says, well, here's your option. Notice these top 3 are bold. Okay. This next one down hasn't got any boldness on it at all. So in other words, whenever you use this little FX button, the function arguments is called, whenever you see things in bold, you have to put something in. Whenever you see it not in bold, you don't always have to put it in. So if you know what you should be putting in and it's kind of not in bold, put it in, but don't panic. You don't always have to put things in. So I can see criteria range 2. So as soon as I click into that now, look, it brings up my second criteria. So what do I want to do on this one? I want to bring it back when it's of that certain month, so 2021-01. So where do I find that? I go to my finance sheet. And I click on my month here. So here's my month, remember. So what am I trying to do? Where is the information I'm trying to find? It's in the months. If I click back on criteria 2, it's actually there. It's under B13. Okay, trust me. And as I type OK on that, that's just giving me my income for 2020-102. Yeah, see how this is building? Yeah. So what I can do now is I can add something called a $sign. So hopefully you know where that comes in. We won't have a chance to cover that on this one now. So what that allows us to do is it allows us to copy it across. So we'll do it one more time on this one. Actually, we'll do it here on expenditure just to show you something different. So equals sum ifs, sum range. We're adding up VAT. There we go. Let's get that back up. Sorry. Criteria range. What are we looking at now? So we're going to look up expenditure. So we go to finance sheet. We click on E for expenditure. Criteria 1. What do? Well, we want it to come back when it actually says that criteria. And then our second criteria range, remember, is the VAT bit. So the VAT. So if we go back onto our finance sheet, we look back for the month because that was what we're trying to find. We click on criteria 2. And then we bring back our VAT that way and then press enter. We've got our expenditure there. Is this making sense? Is this okay, guys? Yeah.
Mm.
So I'm going to use a $sign just by the 12 just to fix the row for me. I'll do the same there. And if I now copy both of those down, we can now see that it's automatically looked at 2102 as well, and for that expenditure. So you can see now as we're adding this in, how easy is this? It's doing it all for us. We don't have to do this ever again. We could take that one away from that one. Not very nice numbers, guys, sorry. But I've changed something just before I came on. I knew I shouldn't have changed it, so it's my fault completely. So when we see that now, we can see totals by months. Does that make sense? Any questions on that?
No, it makes sense. It's just that I don't do VAT, so, but I can see how some of this would come in for other things.
I was going to say, don't overly worry on the VAT bit. It's just worrying about kind of how we pick things up. So if we take that away, let's just do it from company. So let me just grab a company. So I'll just do that. Mucky Manure, it's a nice name. And we can put 2021-04 on there. So if we do a sum ifs on this, so what we're trying to do, maybe we'll do income. So basically we just set it up this way, equals sum ifs. We can add up the total price. Yeah, with our criteria, what are we looking for? We're looking for where we can grab that month first. So we look for the month. We look into criteria. What are we looking for? We're looking for that month. Yeah, feels a little bit, oh, crikey, we're going quite far into this now. So criteria range 2, what are we looking for? We're looking for that customer there. So if we click on finance sheet, where do we find the customer? It's in the company there. What criteria do we want? It's right there, so we can pick that. Once you get to 2, you sometimes have to remember to use this little down bit here. We've got criteria range 3 here. I can click on my financial sheet. So what am I trying to do? I'm trying to remember whether it's an income or expenditure. So we click on that E again. And as I go into criteria 3, I did actually put it on C35, I think. So let's just try it out, which is income. We're going to get nothing because I chose the wrong one. So if we change that to expenditure, there we go. We get that information back. Yeah. So yeah, I completely get the VAT thing. I put VAT in because everyone usually wants it. So I'm obviously
it's
wrong
fine.
on this case, but yeah,
it's the principle, really, isn't it? And
absolutely.
That's the thing I need to remember.
Absolutely. So that makes sense, yeah, to people. Hopefully you can use that. Yeah. So we've got expenditure here. We've done it that way. I'm going to show you one other method, which is very similar to sum ifs, and it's count ifs. So I don't know how hot you are on kind of the statistical functions, but apart from sum, you've got what average, you've got minimums, you've got maximums. Okay, you've also got counts as well. So in exactly the same kind of style, we can do equals, and then we've got something called count ifs. Same as sum ifs, but instead of adding things up, it's going to count how many there are. Okay, so if I just close my brackets there and just come up to the top, it's exactly the same look. Apart from, because we're not adding things up, it doesn't ask us where we want to add up. So if I just wanted to add up all of my income transactions, what do I do? It's exactly the same. I go to finance sheet. I can click on my E there. Once I click on my criteria, I want to click in there, but it's not going to let me. So I click on there and click that back. That tells me I've got 5 income. So it tells me I've got 5 sales invoices in there, 5 transactions for income. You can do that by exactly as we've done here. So how many mucky manure are in here? So if I just do this really quickly, just to show you. Okay. Exactly the same method. So it tells me I've got 4 transactions of that as well.
Okay.
And all of this is just giving you that extra bit of data, isn't it? You're not having to go away and analyze it. So does that make sense? Is that okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, lovely. So what I thought we'd do really quickly now is we've still got kind of a little bit more time here, and that's the normal syllabus, because usually there's more of you anyway on this kind of course, but and you're getting it, so that's fine. So I was going to quickly just show you pivot tables, unless you guys have any other kind of questions on how we can amend this data. So does this data ring any bells with some of the data that you've got, and would you like to do anything different with it, or leave it up to you really? Otherwise I can do pivot tables, so don't panic.
No, I just need to put things in categories really. So
okay, so when you say categories, so have you got a kind of templates set up like this, which then you could put your categories in? Or
yes, it's sort of you know, buying seeds and plants and that sort of thing, and whether you're buying equipment, or so I suppose it's just another column really, is it?
another column. And something else to think of when you do this, if you look at this kind of method, that's where that can come in quite useful. So if you're buying you can have like a description here, I suppose, in the background. I'll just use that, and maybe you're buying sunflower seeds, for example. What you can do is you can have a column there which says actually seeds. So I usually say like maybe it's like a P&L category or something, and then when you buy petrol, maybe it's down as fuel. So what you can do is you can do these VLOOKUPs. So then as soon as you type in something, it puts it in another category as well. So it gives you an overarching category as well, which comes back, and that can help you identify data as well.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. So what about you, Chris? Anything you can think of? Are you okay? Or oh, you're on mute, Chris. Sorry. Just realized then.
No, not your fault at all. It's me not looking. I must admit, it wasn't what I expected.
Okay.
But it's been exceedingly useful, because it's not exactly a totally new field to me, but it certainly has gone through quite a lot of things I didn't realise you could do with an actual VAT program, etc., etc. What I mainly use Excel for, and also a colleague of mine, we've got all our membership on Excel, and we've got what, probably about 30 columns altogether, giving all the different information about the particular membership we've got. And a lot of that we're also putting in so you can actually add bits to it. That's where the addition side of it comes on. You get a box come up, and that gives you all the details on that. The only thing that has confused me a little bit about not what you've done, but what we do, occasionally we need to get them either all in date order or all in alphabetical order. And we've tended to sort of take out the section that we want to do that with, but I believe there should be some method whereby we could say, for argument's sake, in your case there, it's got B, where you've got all the dates there, which are all correct. But if we went over, say, to your column F, we were then looking to get that all in. I know it looks pretty well, it's all in alphabetical order there, but without upsetting the rest of the information we got up there. So the thing, if say we wanted it in alphabetical order, all the columns will change to give it the same membership that we've got there. That's one thing we haven't sorted out yet, so that's easy enough.
Okay. I think I get what you're talking about, but I just want to make absolutely sure. So a normal sort wouldn't help here. So if I was to do that and then do custom sort, that wouldn't help, would it? Or would that help?
I don't know. I say what we've tended to do, we've subdivided all the information you want there, then we put that into a separate sheet. so that we're not going to screw up the original information we've got. But I believe there should be some way of doing it without going to all the problem of actually taking it off to another page to sort it out.
Okay, let me show you one other tool. And it was one I was going to just quickly show you anyway, from a pivot table point of view. I think it may be quite useful. That may help you, Chris, as well, because you wouldn't upset any of this data. So obviously, bearing in mind, we've got different data to you, Chris, and here as well. But principle, as we've kind of mentioned that word a few times, it's always the same, isn't it? So if I was to just insert a pivot table, so I'm just going to click on my data, and I press insert. I can press pivot table. And then you don't need to worry about all of this. One thing you do need to know at the bottom here is where it's got new and existing workbook. If you're new to pivot tables, always make sure that's clicked on new, okay? And it usually is on a default, okay? So I'm going to click on okay. Now, a pivot table is a good way of analyzing data very, very quickly. So Minia, did you say you've used pivot tables or you've heard of them?
No, I have used them. Yeah.
Okay. So this is maybe a little bit of a refresher to you, but I suppose it does fit in both of your worlds, really, I think, from what you said. So for example, I've got my pivot table, which is going to grow here on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side here, I've got things which look really complicated. With pivot tables, believe it or not, it's an advanced Excel skill. It's not. If you can drag and drop, you're absolutely fine with this. And this is what this is about. It's about understanding which fields can go in which kind of area here. So what we can do is, if you notice all of this stuff on the right-hand side, they're all of your column headers from the finance sheet, okay? So transition ID, data accrued, business, company, all of this, okay? So what we can do is we can drag and drop these. Now, stay well away from the left-hand side, okay? Because if you click on one of those, Excel will put it in a box for you. I would always choose where to put it. So one example of maybe how to look at your data again differently, Chris, would be to, I think we said about, let me have a quick little check. What did we say? We said about maybe column F, wasn't it? It's a company. So if I grab that company, click and hold, left mouse button, I drag it under row and let go. It puts it all in alphabetical order for me. Now, on this other page on the finance sheet, nothing's changed. Everything's in the correct order there. So if I wanted to grab other bits of information across from it, so what have I got? I've got things like a business. So if business isn't a good one, is it? Type, maybe zone. Let's use zone, and I'll put it under rows. What I can do then is I can see under Acme, it says which rows I've got information in here. Okay, what I can do very, very quickly with this is I can change the design of it. Okay, so if I click on design, and the reason why I'm blowing through this a little bit quickly, because this might help you. If it doesn't, I don't want to waste your time on doing it either. If I go to design, I can see report layout. I could do something called a tabular form. And what that does, if I get rid of all of these horrible little subtotals and grand totals, is this starts to show all of my data. Let's just grab some dates in now. I know it's months and stuff, but you could have any data on here, and it can show you by person. If you've got by membership, it can show you their details. So maybe when they first joined or something, what kind of business you do with them. It brings back all of that information, and you can just keep on adding to this. It can actually just show you all of that, and it automatically, and that's why I showed you, really does it in alphabetical order for you. Yeah. If I take some of these off, you can actually see what else it can do. It can grab, if I put price under values, it can show you the sum of price from EU, UK, March, February, April. So it can bring all of that financial information if you've got financial information next to members as well. So it'll summarize those for you. It automatically does a sum. You can, I know this looks a bit weird, trust me, if I do total price again, I can change this in the value field settings to count. And I can see how many there are against that one as well. So as you can see straight away, this is a drag and drop. Okay, this is nothing more than that. It does take a little while to get used to, but that's just another way. I wish I had a better spreadsheet I could just quickly show you. Another way of just grabbing information on there. I may actually have one for you really quickly. So if you just bear with me 2 seconds, I might be able to find something a little bit better. But that's how you can grab information on there. So if I just bear with me 2 seconds. Maybe, maybe not. Let's grab these two. Yeah, not great. Sorry, I might not be able to find one, but I don't want to waste your time either. But hopefully you can just see. I need to maybe do one with a little bit more information. So, you know, this is just a stock one, for example. And you can just do exactly the same. So this is by product, who's transferred it, customers, that sort of thing. Just really, really simply, same again. I can just do by product. I can show who the customer was, and I can show how many quantities delivered. And if I just change that, just using the method I did earlier, just a report layout to a table, then essentially I can just grab all of that back and it puts it all in alphabetical order for me. And I'm not, the key bit, I'm not changing any of this. Yeah. So that usually you use a pivot table to summarize. You can also use it just to put it in a different format as well. And it will eventually look like this the more and more you do. And just put it in the relevant parts. Does that make sense? I know that was kind of off the cuff.
Yeah.
Feel free. If you want to get a hold of me after this, then Sarah can give you my email address if you want to, and I can maybe have a look at something else for you.
Okay, thanks.
But
That could be obvious. Yeah.
But that's the sort of thing that we can do if you want to. But yeah, just doing it on the fly. Sorry, I wish I could come up with something a little bit better for you, but I haven't got anything in that kind of format. So pivot table is a good alternative just to summarize your data as well. All right.
Yep.
Hopefully that's helped a little bit more. Any other questions just while we're here now?
Do you have a spreadsheet set out for a small business, you know, with the headings that you would use? Do you have a template, is the word I'm looking for?
I don't, but I suppose everyone is very different. So what you can do though, and this is really useful, is if I click onto file here, just in the top left-hand corner, whenever we open Excel, what we do, we always just go into blank workbook. We never have a look at this templates here. So if I click on more templates just to the right, then you can find that there are Microsoft templates in here. So if I put business in, for example, and search profit and loss, balance sheet, there's an invoice one here, look.
Oh, yes.
All right. So all you do is just press on create. It downloads, it's all safe, it's all within Excel, or within Microsoft rather. And okay, it's all Americanized, but you can change it. But even if you don't use this version, it just shows you maybe how to set it out.
Yes, yeah.
And because that's quite hard sometimes, you don't understand how hard it is, even though you know what information you've got. So that's another good way. So just refresh that.
Thank you.
File, new, and then you go to templates. And then if I click on business again, you can see ledgers and all sorts. So some of these will have things like conditional formatting all in as well. So honestly, just type in maybe what you want, whether it's transactions or something, and just have a play with it, see what you can find.
Yeah, that's good.
It's because you wouldn't have a normal template for anyone because everyone's business is so different. Some people don't collect a lot of data. Some people collect quite a lot because you only want to be collecting stuff that you need to either report on or you're going to use, because otherwise don't bother collecting it. Or if HMRC requires you to collect it, obviously, but don't just collect for the sake of it. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions on that?
No.
Anything else? Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks for your time. Hopefully that's giving you a little bit what you want, and even if it's gone kind of around a little bit of a way and you've learned something new, then that's kind of the aim for it, isn't it? Because I always say we don't know what we don't know, so unless someone's taught you it, why would you know it? So it's quite good to be self-taught, but it's quite good having some of these sessions as well, so you can kind of find the direct way of learning as well. So as I say, this template's available for you as well.
Okay. How do we get this template?
So Sarah, Lorraine, can we send it out to these two?
Yeah.
Would that be okay?
Yeah, no problem.
So what I'll do is I will actually, I always do this, and Sarah's going to laugh in a second, and Lorraine will as well. I'm just going to add a little bit of data just in Chris's format, okay? Directly after this, I'll put it as another tab on it, and I'll show you a very quick version of an Excel pivot table, just another way of just looking at that data, okay? So it'll be a more simplistic version, but it'll be a bit more tailored as well. So I'll get that sent to you in the next kind of half hour as well. All right. So there we go. So yeah. So thanks for your time. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you, Stuart, for a very informative session there. If you do think of things that you need help with and you'd like one-to-one training, we can offer that 100% funded. So get in touch with us if you would like further assistance, and there's other training sessions coming up, so check the website out for those. And I've popped a link to a survey in the chat. If you wouldn't mind just completing that for us, it would be really helpful as well. But most of all, thank you for attending today. It's been much appreciated, and please get in touch if we can help in any other way.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, all the best, lad.